Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Jean and I am the face behind the Ancient Oracle Healer. Today I would like to discuss my experience as a divine feminine twin flame and the ascension process that coincides with that experience. I first became aware of the twin flame journey last year in June when I experienced a spontaneous heart chakra awakening or opening, a Kundalini activation. I had been connecting in with the person that I believe to be my twin flame, divine counterpart, the person who essentially spurred on my awakening process for about, I want to say, a year before then. And before then, I had no real concept of this, but I immediately started connecting into it just because the experience was so profound. When I began to open up, as is usually experienced by the divine feminine, I started to unlock from the heart chakra all the way up through the crown chakra and the galactic chakras. So I started to experience a lot of psychic visioning. I was able to access his galactic body. I was able to see galactic grids and the ways in which the physical body was created through a light grid form. And I was also able to start sensing when souls were from this planet or when they were from a different planet or if they just had a different soul origin. And I'll fully admit that this process was really confusing in the beginning because I thought that he was experiencing it too. And it turns out that he wasn't, and this is also part of the process. Usually one twin will awaken before the other one will, and this is essentially to give that second twin the bandwidth to be able to grow into the spaces that they need to, and to be able to heal in the ways that they need to as well. So I started to understand and unlock this journey from the inside out. And unfortunately, sometimes when the vibrational frequencies between two twins are so far apart from each other, it can cause dissonance or it can cause projection onto each other. So I feel as though my twin probably projected things onto me that were not necessarily true, and I probably projected things onto him that were not necessarily true either. So as I began to move through this journey and realizing that he had absolutely no idea of what was happening, I started to internalize the experience, and I used it almost as a muse for myself, like a way for me to unlock portions of myself that still needed to be healed. I started to experience tremendous creative output. I created dances that were related to my inspiration of that experience. But then I also started to be taken through a wide variety of lessons that are very essential for each counterpart to learn in this process of ascension. So the first thing that I started to learn was the process of manifestation. It was the process of the conscious and unconscious thought that was then creating my external reality. And because my internal reality was reformulating and reshaping so quickly, it began to create a volatile experience in the external reality. So I had business partnerships that fell apart. I had whole friendships that fell apart. I had life circumstances that fell apart. And it forced me into myself. It forced me to go and heal these portions of myself that I hadn't quite had access to or hadn't quite touched yet. And my twin, he very much shoved into my face, whether or not he meant to, which I know that he didn't. He shoved into my face all of these core wounds that I still had yet to address. My wounds around abandonment, my inner childhood wounds, my relational wounds, and also it challenged the ideologies that I had adopted and thought were the way in which I was just supposed to live life. So very quickly, my experience of love and sex and relationships just completely collapsed. And I was required to reformulate what it was that I actually thought love was, what it was I actually thought I was intended to receive, and what I was even worthy of receiving as a person. And so I went deep into a dark night of the soul. And when I was in the dark night of the soul, I really did reach the absolute depths of myself as a person and the shadow aspects that lived within me. At one point, I actually reached the so far bottom that I considered suicide, simply because the feelings were so intense, the experience was so intense. And I want to also talk about the experience that happens on a visceral level within the physical body. For me, I had various symptoms of PTSD. I had a lot of physical trauma that was stored within my body because of previous relationships or previous experiences that I had. And those things, while I thought that I had cleared them out, they really began to come to the surface for healing as soon as I got into a state where I was able to access them. So I dove deeper and deeper and deeper, and the next experience as a divine feminine twin flame was that I had this experience of separation, this experience of really wanting to be with this person, them having no real understanding of the reasons why I wanted to be with them, and them not really even understanding the unconditional love that I felt internally for them, that has then grown into my capacity to just love everyone unconditionally, regardless of their background or their pattern, because I understand that everything is all about karma. It's about karma, and it's about karmic balancing. So even within twin flame dynamic, you have a set amount of karma that you bring into life with them that's actually intended to be cleared within this life. So you will trigger things within them that they need to see and they need to heal, because it's not their true soul essence. It's not who they are. It's the conditioning that they've accepted. It's the things that came from their familial backgrounds, the things that came from their ancestors, the things that come from their friends, and the things that they have adopted and have assumed are just the way that life is intended to work. But if there's one thing that I know about this journey, it's that you completely reshape your world. You completely reshape your experience, and anything that is not in alignment with your highest truth and your soul's essence and your soul's expression and the way in which you're intended to come into this world, it will be completely eradicated from your reality, and there's nothing you can do about it. And it's actually for your highest good, but it feels terrifying because you then have all of these resources that you think that you've built up for yourself, and it's this security blanket that you want to continue to hold on to. But the security blanket is not real. The universe will always provide for you. It will always give you exactly what you need when you need it. And this is the experience to teach you that you are allowed to surrender. You are allowed to know that you are divinely held, and to tap into the inner God within you, to then express that outwardly, to then have that reflected back to you in your external reality. So as I continued to move through my experiences, I started to have more visceral bodily experiences. I had mood swings. I felt like I was in cloud nine, and then I would plummet, and then I would go up, and then I would go down. And this was primarily after having an experience with my twin where I had communicated with him about an experience I had with a person connected to him in his life, and I could sense that he got really triggered by the whole thing that we were navigating. And so he pushed me away, and he put in a boundary and said, no, you're not allowed to communicate with me. And rightly so, if he's triggered and he was misunderstanding where I was coming from, and the fact that I really was coming from a good place, but he wasn't able to perceive it as receiving it as something coming from a good place, then that's just the reaction. That was what happened. And so I went through, again, another withdrawal, another separation process, but it felt like he was beginning to at least start the process of awakening from an unconscious way. And having been personally connected to the spirit realm for a while, I actually had one of my ancestors, my grandmother, she came back to me one night, and she connected in with my energy and helped me feel as though I was a child of the universe again, and that I could just completely surrender into that. And then about 2 weeks after that experience, I felt like my karma within the twin flame experience, at least for what I was intended to process on my end, had shifted and it ended. And let me tell you, I bawled my eyes out whenever that happened. And I feel like I'm downplaying the experience because it was tremendously emotionally intense leading up to that point. But I felt so relieved when I felt like my karma had shifted. And that's also when things within my external reality started to open up. My business started to open up, right relations started to come in for me. I started to feel more aligned and balanced within myself. I had resources that were coming to me completely effortlessly because I was a magnet for those experiences. And especially if you are divine feminine, it is your right to receive. It is your right to experience complete peace, complete bliss, complete joy, and you are intended to ground that into this reality and then model that for all of the people around you, because quite frankly, we have been living in such a distorted reality that people have forgotten that it is their birthright to receive these types of things. So as a divine feminine, we are embodying the essence of truth. We are embodying the essence of source. We are embodying the essence of the creation of the universe itself. And then moving through the world like that, we're able to anchor in unconditional love frequencies into our community, into our friends, into our family, into our whole bloodline that extends 7 generations forward and 7 generations backward. And then from there, we're able to attract and magnetize all of the resources that we might ever need. And we're truly able to connect in with our inner goddess and God's source itself. So I have been navigating that process, and as of late, I've also had some nervous system triggers continue to come up where I just have to be a little more gentle with myself. Sometimes these things come up and they require me to spend 3 or 4 days taking care of my body. And when you're going through this kind of rigorous ascension process, it's almost essential that you start to take care of your physical vessel the best that you can. I was guided to stop drinking. I was guided to reduce or completely eliminate my caffeine intake. I was guided to meditate frequently. I've been guided to doing nature walks or connecting in with friends or doing things that I love or pursuing passions that just make me happy and make me feel vibrant as a person. And in doing that, I'm able to raise or maintain my own vibrational frequency regardless of what's happening around me. And this is so important. As a divine feminine, right now, we are intended to be the light for people. We are very often the ones that ascend first, and your masculine might still be living in that lower dimensional reality where they're still stuck in trauma loops, they're still stuck in karmic bonds, they're still processing through their ancestral lineage, or they're clearing karma on behalf of their family, or they're rewriting their story and empowering themselves, taking their power back and learning really what it means to be a positive masculine energy that, one, reveres the divine feminine, recognizes the divine feminine, and wants to protect the divine feminine because he understands that we are the direct connection to source. We are that deep intuitive sense where we can pierce the veil, and we know before anything ever happens whether or not we're intended to go in that direction. And we are tremendously valuable. Our worth is so great, and we should sit in that and be in that. So if you find yourself being a divine feminine on a twin flame journey, having been activated, going through the same process of awakening where you're learning your powers of manifestation, you're moving through your dark night of the soul, you're going into the 0 point energy and understanding how to make choices from complete neutrality and not having attachment to outcome, If you're healing your childhood wounds, if you're healing your ancestral lineage, if you're doing work in the astral, if you're dreaming, all of this is perfect. Perfect. Be in your power. And also, if your masculine, or if any masculine for that reason, comes to you and they're not actually worthy of your time, your energy, your resources, your value, it's okay to set that boundary. That's the time to start to go inside and strengthen your inner masculine, because when you strengthen both your masculine and your feminine energies internally, that then reflects outwardly, and you will then attract people who are more balanced. You will then attract more experiences that are more balanced, and you will be able to create things in a more effortless way where you can take it from divine inspiration and then move through concrete action and be able to execute that seamlessly. And you want to be with a person who is able to match you on that. And ultimately, hopefully, the masculine collective will, as we hold the standard, rise to match us in that standard, because it is required of them. One thing my masculine showed me that I wasn't even aware of until I started doing deep work was that I was allowing energies within my reality that actually made me feel uncomfortable. And that was me abandoning myself. I was abandoning myself. I was abandoning my entire world. I was sacrificing my own comfort simply because I was afraid to speak up. And I had these fun experiences within my nervous system that made me respond in a specific way only because that was how I learned to survive. But we don't have to live like that anymore. We don't have to live in fear. We don't have to live in judgment. We can live with our hearts completely open, and the people that are intended to gravitate towards that, they will. And it's our responsibility to have fostered our internal masculine energies enough to know when we need to set appropriate boundaries. So thank you so much for allowing me to share a little bit about my ascension process, a little bit about my experience as a divine feminine twin flame, and I hope that you have a wonderful day. Namaste.